Hello YouTube, H4Merkava here, and today I'm doing a two-parter. One is going to be the February events, and another one is going to be what I learned with Deity Part 1 in this video. Now, I'll be doing another video with the two-handed rework, my thoughts, some builds, and ideas of that. But let's get started with the events for February. So, happy February, everyone. Hope you all having a great February right now. I know it's recently just started, but we have a lot of great jam-packed and new events in order to cover today. So we can't forget about the first event, which is the Beastfeld. Sword or no sword, staff or no staff, to don a suit of armor or leave ourselves vulnerable. Trials awaits us. And they're not underestimating or understating that. There are a lot of challenging trials for the storyline quest for the Beastfeld events. If you have any questions about them, please let me know. But a lot of the monsters, if you were already tier 10 or tier 11, to help you with the kill a monster or boss with the weakness elements, my best advice for you is to do a Fomorian crest. That boss will be the tier appropriate, a star drop, and then King Gradlin. Those would be my three advices of things. If you do not have any of those and you want some help, you can let me know on my Discord. Links will be in the description for this event. But overall, raid, absolute amazing gear for that. It's helping everybody. Followers. The followers are actually pretty good for Endless if you want to take and do your faction element for the Krebos or Krebos, the Wolf Boy, whatever you want to call it. And then in order to craft the Turnkey Lincolnus or Lycanus scrolls, you'll need to defeat the Krebos, the Manticore, and the Monoceros in order to get fragments. It's going to be 7 of each. My advice for people for this event is to take and do monuments if you're running low on the Monoceros for that. Monoceros are plentiful monuments. You could probably get an average between 5 plus, depending on your RNG, per one monument. You can do a monument in roughly a few minutes, or 5 to 10 minutes or so. Next, we have our Splunking event, which starts on the 7th, ends on the 11th. We get more Orns, so yay, more Orns. And of course, we have the dungeon cooldown. And then get ready your Delubinomics friend, the Aspects, or your Pokemon. Get ready to hatch those Pokemon eggs and collect some proofs of distance while you're at it for the Aspects event. So save those for some great ones. Now we have our new event, the Menders of Hearts, and the video that Northern Forge did release earlier during this event, which is from the 13th to the 18th. So I'm glad they extended it a couple of days, because originally I think it was the 13th to the 15th. You can take and defeat these monsters and bosses, and at the end you can get a baguette. So shout out to Gouldine for getting the baguette added, or having a strong influence with that. And you can also get a Heart of Change. So I'm looking forward to get that Heart of Change to help me out with all the classes that I'm going through. So thank you, Northern Forge, for saving me some money. I do appreciate it. Next, we have our questing events, and that is going to be from the 14th to the 18th. So if you're tier 9 or you're tier 10 and you're trying to complete that quest, you're running towards the finish line, trying to get to the main storyline quest to finish it, to kill Medea, to get the Mammon Knight Series, all the good stuff. Be great to finish around this time, so try and prepare yourself as much as possible. If you need some help, run some dungeons, you can always let me know again, or you can always ask for help in the different community discords that are out there. I'm sure some people will be out there to help you out. A little country accent kick in there. And we still have a couple of days left on the Worm Hunt, so highly recommend get that. The raids are amazing for different follower AI gear, ward gear that I'll be showing in my Deity build that I'm going to be using. And overall, great adornments from the dragons and from the Manticore as well over here. From the Manticore, from this dude right there. And of course, we can't forget about one of my favorite events out there. Maybe not the most favorite, probably in my top 5, which is the Riftfall events, which is going to be from the 18th to the 11th. So we have it all the way into next month. We're going to battle Achilles, Charon, and Rada, and monster and boss form, and raid as well. And you can craft all those in order to make yourself a Restored Word Scroll in the future, because to my knowledge, I'm just taking a look quick at the events. Yes, there is no event where you can turn those fragments in there, so if you get those fragments that drop from the Rada and Achilles monsters and bosses, you can take and craft those into a Risen Rift Judgment Scroll. I know some of my friends are sick and tired of that word. I know I'm sick and tired. I've had to take and kill a whole bunch of those in order to get a lot of Fogstone and Titanium. But overall, a great event to help a lot of new thieves, mages, and warriors get some amazing gear throughout that, and cool adornments for Ultima and other cool stuff for that. Of course, it wouldn't be a month without an XP event. Sometimes we do have no XP event, but I do always appreciate it because that means I get my number to go higher, so I can get my over-level badge one step closer to getting to the next one. And that's going to be for the 21st through the 25th for that one, for an extra 20%. Of course, you thought one Ord event was good for the Small King? No, how about have two of them? And this one is going to be from the 28th to the 4th, so we're going to have a bit of amount of time for that Orange event. So 2 chances to get Orange. So that's the overview of the stuff that's going on in February for events. Now we're going to move over to part 2 of the video, which is what I've learned with Deity week 1. So first was Beowulf. Now the second class that I'm hard to change into, or I have hard to change over to, is Deity. And I'm going to show you some progress where I am and some of my goals and plans and advice that I've gotten from a lot of people so far. First things first, I'm currently essentially level 151. I'm blocked by Avalanor. This is the material that's plagued me. Previously on our Beowulf adventures, it was silk, which was a lot more convenient to farm during that time. So thank you for the Phoenix Rise event for giving me so much silk. I'm actually spending a lot of that right now working on some new gear for some endless stuff. And I will get that by the end of next week. I think I will get it because it's going to show up in the guild shop. I just have a good feeling about it. Now, I'm going to show base Deity and what I like about base Deity. But first off, we're going to go with the... We're just going to go over the abilities. So we have the Apex 3. So you begin battle with your Apex meter partially filled. When the meter is full, Apex spells and skills can be used. But also you have the Unstable Omnimancy at the bottom, where when your Apex meter is filled, you will not be weak to any elements, which is an amazing thing that I use whenever I battle towers. To always make sure if I'm going up against a challenging mob, then my Apex meter is full, I'll kill whatever monsters or bosses are around me. I'm like, where are they at? Come here. Come over here. But back over here, we have the Deity. We have a 12% chance to get temporary all 3, which is pretty fantastic. And then the Demigod, where you have the patented purple lining, where you have your HP and your mana whenever they go below 50% or so, then you start getting more. I think HP really starts at that. It says at 60%. So I think the HP is at after 50, but mana starts immediately from my testing. And then you have the staying power, which is fantastic. Buff duration and debuff fading is 40%. And then you have second chance and steadfast, which is fantastic because you have a coin flip to be like, you know what? I just don't want to die. And sometimes that can happen multiple times in one turn. I've had it happen. So always love it when I see that coin flip and I want it. Not always happy when I see it and I lose the coin flip. Now steadfast is, reduction and getting afflicted with poison, blight, petrify, paralyze, all that fun stuff right there. So at the moment I'm using Oracle for my DD class. And for my dungeon loadout, similar to the Beowulf, I have a 100% ward turn build here, where whenever I use Ward of Wardenite, because I have the Fallen Sky armor and 2 5% Ward Absorb amities, it brings my Ward Absorbs up to 100%, so I can enter the dungeon with this, use Ward of Wardenite, maybe cast a couple of buffs, so I might change the gear to the other one, which is putting on the Old Northern Crown to help my attack and my magic being lowered, and then the Arisen Arc Gadget to help my defense and resistance from being lowered for that. So this is what I use Deity for. For the most part, I don't really use Deity anymore for a lot of stuff. I think it is a really great class that it sells at a lot of stuff in the beginning of the game when you don't have access to Ursa or Aura. And I might do some little tests with it. With the 200 we work with that, but for the most part, Ursa and Aura are the two classes that I'll be mainly going over in more detail. We're going to go in alphabetical order. So we're going to go at Deity Aura next. So Deity Aura, the magic of the magical bros slash ladies. But before I do that, let me just go over the skills real quick from Deity. So you have the Viper Seal, the Sacred Seal, Gloom Seal, Los Seal, Nutra Eventialis, the single target one, fantastic because it has really high M1 penetration. Then you have Viper Seal, Sacred Seal again, Gloom Seal, Lost Seal, and Ultima and Ultima 2. And of course you have the Strike version for all the spells as well. So those are pretty great in the beginning if you don't have any spells in order to help you do some damage and get some war turns to heal a little bit. But when we go over to Deity Aura, then we get the 1,000 Seals of Eventialis, which I recommend not to use. I like using the other one. But the other spell, the Nutra Minialis, is fantastic. When you cast it, your next spell will hit everyone, but its attack or magic is reduced by 50%, which is a pretty fair price to pay, I have to say, in order to damage everyone. Now, there is a time where sometimes you cast it, and it will not activate. I've had that a couple times, so you have to be wary of that. But you can see here we have the version 3 of the Seal spells from the Deity Aura, and what's different from the Seal 2 spells or Seal 1 spells is that these can actually crit, and they give you an extra turn of ward, which is fantastic. So we have all the different ones. So this is the ability to get an arcane ability that's not Ultima that you can take and crit with that, which is fantastic. Now going over the passives, the ability from the Aura is that you use an Apex ability and you gain 20% increased stats. And now, in the past, it used to go up to 120. But now it's going to take and go up to 100. So they, cut it back a little bit. And, and all right, Deity Aura is a very powerful class. I'm not going to lie to you there, folks. But you can read this part, which makes it a little bit different from the other Apex one. Upon using an Apex skill, any status effects that have a chance to be applied to yourself per turn have a good chance to be immediately applied, which goes with the Aura passive. Or maybe if you have an item or weapon that gives you a passive, then it will immediately apply, like the Magic 1, 2, or 3 being applied from the Aura passive, which is fantastic. So you can see here the Apex, the 20%, like I said before. Similar, it has everything else like the other one, except it only has Steadfast 1, not Steadfast 2 like the base has, so it has 10 less status protection. That's still fantastic. Now, going over to Deity Aura, I have a couple different builds here that I used, or that I am using right now. So I'm just going to give you all a sneak peek on my tower build that I'm using right now, which is this. I'm using the new two-handed Swan Song. Now it hits everyone. What's great about the Swan Song is that it has a built-in hybrid passive, so you don't need to have a hybrid Amity. And then my Amity that I use right now is a Bestial Bond 1 with a good old 40% crits, and then all my gear has crit, so I can take and have a higher chance of critting. And then the adornments in my weapon are the Solarite Mortars, which gives you 2% weapon two-handed. Blah, blah, let me reset it a little bit. The Solarite Mortar gives you a 2% bonus to two-handed weapon abilities and skills and stuff like that. Plus, it gives you a little attack and magic, and that's fantastic. And of course, I have a pretty decent one, which gives me 204% ward, which is fantastic. Our legs are for the extra ward, and then these are for the extra crit rate that it has. So usually I'll wear this after I get a crit buff in towers, but before that I will just put on my other Rift Rogue, which will give me an additional 7%. Now, my advice for a lot of the early game deities, if you don't have a lot of ascension levels, is to not, or don't have the amount of bristles that I do, is to not use the Solarite Mortars in the gear, and instead use the Ferocious Bull's Eyes, which is like this one that I have right here. So you can see it has a lot more critical hits than the other one does, so you have to waste less of the stuff for here. So you can maybe put in some Jewels of Creation or some Manticore Eyes or any other pieces of adornments you want to if you don't have that. So it's a really easy way. I do believe that the Solarite Mortars do give more damage to the good old Deity or any two-handed weapon damage user, but it comes at the cost of using more adornment slots or different gear alternations in order to get that crit rate to where some people may have to dick and use the Ashen Pinions. I try and avoid using Ashen Pinions at all costs, henceforth why I had to rearrange all my gear for the Lincolnus Bristles, or the Beer Bristles if you were there during the anniversary whenever we defeated Odie last year and got some. So stay tuned to that for this year. If you didn't get any this month, you can get some more during anniversary. Now, with raids, this is my sequencer build here. It's a little bit of a lazy sequencer build here where I have the Beast-felled boots that give my pet Ward of Wardenite, and the Risen Aura robe, which gives my pet Greater Meditation 3 or Magic Up 3 temporarily. And I use the Mightiest Mimic for this. Amity is a 40% crit with 20% water. And Anwin Ring for immunities, and the Bracer for a little bit more crit. Had the tweak around for some different builds, but the staff has all Lungs of Ocean is in it, which helps me make my 2-turn spells immediately an instant cast by reducing it by 1 turn. You can change it up for some different stuff. I don't really have the Gods of Rue boots in order to make it work upgraded yet, but that's something I'm work in progress. Now for dungeons, you can use the same gear that I used before, but you can see here I'm using a different chest compared to the other one, because for dungeons you need around 75 to 80% or so, because you have the access to Worm Song that can give you some extra crit rate to help you out with the Swan Song. And yes, Swan Song is something that's viable to be used in the dungeons. The only downside is that you may not, or probably will not, be able to defeat any Berserks because it doesn't have a lot of M1 or penetration or punch skills in it. Now the Amity that I have is not necessary, but can help for a lot of people when it's 4% crit with 5% maximum mana per turn. So thank you, Hypoon, a couple weeks ago for helping me out to get that. And then the Trevelyan Charms for that extra punch once again to get that extra power. So that's just an overview there. I'm going to go over the endless stuff in another video whenever I do that. But I just want to give people a sneak peek. Some people already know, but thanks to using Deity Aura, I was able to finally get my Demon Forge Endless Badge. So I'm the proud owner of a floor 1071 now, thanks to Deity Aura Sequencer. I'll show you the build that I used and then what I'm going to be using in the future as well, possibly. But I'm just going to take and show you this one right here that I used. So this is the gear that I used right here. I had a Thord Monuments at the moment to give me extra crit rates. As you can see here, it's not 55% here, it's 54%, so I had an extra 10% on top of that. So my advice is the 55% before Worm Song to get that 100% when you use Ultima. But enough talking about the magic dude or dudette. Now we're going to go to the cool sword guy, Deity Ursa, one of my favorite ones, because I'm a physical attack enjoyer at heart, as y'all know. Now you can see some of the different stats here. Deity Ursa does have more HP. That's a given. It has more attack, a lot less mana, and it has a little bit more defense, which is cool. And the skills, once again, I don't really think the Thousand Blades Eventualis is that good, but with the new Chinalis change, And Chinalis being the part of the tier 9 Deity class, which gives you Divine Bastion when you use your Apex ability to get it, or not Divine Bastion, but basically Divine Channel when you snap your fingers. Now instead of snapping your fingers once, you have to snap them twice, aka 2 turns, in order to do it. But you can work around that if you are DDR Sequencer, because it turns 2-turn spells into a 1-turn spell. But what the Ultra Balialis does is that it gives you temporary resistance and defense 3 when you use it. So I've been using this a lot in towers, when I've been challenging myself to raise my anguish higher, when I want to get more shards and be a little greedy, you know. So I use this instead of the chalice right now, even though the balance or change isn't in effect yet. It will be in the future. So I'm already just acting like it's already existent so I don't get complacent, and I click it and I'm like, wait a minute, why isn't it working? So I removed it from majority of my bars and spells. But just like DD Aura, DD Ursa has the strike or the physical attack spells that can crit. So you have the Ember Strike, Tidal Strike, Terror Strike, Gale Strike, Viper Strike, Seeker Strike, Gloom Strike, Low Strike. Try and say that 10 times real fast. And then Ultima Strikes, which is one of my favorite abilities, where it's like Ultima, but it's using physical attack rather than magic attack. And you have the 2000 Blades of Ventialis. Now, I like Ultima Strikes because you can make it a quick cast if you really want to. You're not going to go out on damage if you want to go Sequencer with that, but it does a lot of damage. So that's what I do enjoy with that. Now, going over with the passives. Now, here's what makes DD Ursa a lot different from the other two. So, the second part right here, well, let me just read out the Apex Ursa. Your Apex meter charged much faster. Ooh. But Apex spells or skills will deal less damage. Upon using an Apex skill or spell, I'll reverse that a little bit, you'll gain an additional turn. So, you can see there, plus 90% Apex rate. Apex damage is reduced, which is something to keep note of. So if you're using like Neutra Evangelialis, a single target one, it will do less damage. But we have the more chance of gaining extra turn, which can become vital in battle. So that's where I use the Borealis, and then I use my other ability, whether it be ward or attack, because I have that immediate extra turn. Now, the DD Ursa one, this is great. So you can see right here, your attack will be increased to varying degrees in battle. Additionally, upon defeating an opponent in battle, any status effects have a chance to be applied to yourself per turn, have a good chance to be immediately applied. So it's different from Aura, where Aura says when you use an Apex ability, it has a higher chance of staying. This one says whenever you use your giant sword and slash somebody down, you have a chance for it to stay or be applied immediately. And then you have the Demigod Ursa. So this one, when you're lower health, you get a lot more stats. And the mana starts immediately as well for this one. And you have the same one with the buff duration, and you have Steadfast and Second Chance and the Unstable Omnimancy. Similar or just like the other three. So let me swap over here. I love using Blades of Finesse. You can see my Blades of Finesse spells how to use with this one. And let me show you what I'm using right now for my dungeon loadouts. So I've been testing this one. I was trying to use a Gandering. That's why I had an Arcane Amity. But you can do High Anguish with this as well. Now, my advice for people is if you're going to use Swan Song and you're in a party, you can maybe have more leeway to use Sinatra or Sonata, however you want to apply it, the magical buff one at the cost of your defense. But I recommend to not use that. No. I recommend using the Gate of Third instead. And you may be like, well, Ace Farmer Kevin, what is the Gate of Third? Well, let me tell you. I covered it last month, I believe, when I was in the Valhalla class line. But you get it from this guy, I think. Yes, so Gate of Third, or Thread. A battle stance favored by a Valkyrie of War. Taking this stance in battle will slightly increase your attack and your magic at the cost or the expense of your defense and your resistance. And the raw math numbers is plus 25% to your attack and magic, and then lower 25% to your defense and resistance, which is much better than going with the Sinatra or Gunner. In this situation, if we go here, and Gunner reducing your resistance by 90%, and then Sinatra or Sonata is reducing your defense by 90%. So I'd rather take the 25 over to the 90%. But back over to the Deity. For the equipment, you can do this. And what I recommend is you can use Berserks if you want to, but you'd have to micromanage your health or have a health regeneration Amity. I'm using a crit Amity as well, the favor one. So let me go over there so you can see what it looks like. You can see both of the ones that I use for most, not that one. So this is one I use for raids. I guess it's, well, this one's a different one, opportunity. But this one, the critical hits, 40% more effective, and gain access here for all his Beast Steel Bond 1. Now, I can also do a buff duration as well, but I just like crits. So, I do this one. So, just like before with the other one. Now, I do have some other builds that I can go over in the future whenever I cover some more dungeon stuff and what I learned with what I learned with Deity, not Beowulf, with week 2. But with raids, I'm using Ren Daggers. So, this is the build I'm using here. I have a little bit higher than normal crit rate, so I have a very small chance of not missing my crits. Now, I can always just put in another pumpkinless gear with attack pinions to get lower defense and more power, but eh. And the Amity is 40% crits with 5% more regeneration per turn. So, you know, if I get hit, at least I'll be able to start regenerating some ward back, which is cool. Now, at towers, this is what I'm using right now when I go down... when I go down the route of the Chain Shield route. Now, I can technically do the Swan Song as well with this, but I have to make it work like the other one. I'm probably not going to use the crit with the magic one. This is probably just saved from my previous build. I mainly do this one right here for the Beast Steel Bond, or I would do one that gives me a starting ward turn. But I mainly use the Arisen Aura leggings right here for the starting ward turns for here. Until I get my crit buff, or vice versa, I'll use that for that. So that is what I'm currently using for all 3 classes. I know this video is getting up there, so I'm probably going to wrap it up here and say thank you everyone for watching the video. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. I would appreciate your support. And if you want to go check out my Twitch, the link will be in the description as well. Y'all have a great rest of y'all's day/nights, and I will catch you on the next stream or video. Peace, everyone. Bye.